So we are on the bottom of Kufnin, right? Are we together on that?
Yep.
And the Rebbe is bringing to the point of what is this Melchama Alei Bachem? Melchama is Melchama Nefesh Abamis. The question is, why did it say Kiseitze? Seitze means you go out. And the Rebbe explained that this is alluding to the principle that as long as you have the cognizance of the Ohr Makif, there's no milchama. This Ohr Makif, as much as we have discussed it, we have to go a little bit deeper and clearer to understand the principle of the Ohr Makif.
We're talking Milchama Am what?
What?
You started saying...
Im HaNefesh Abamis. It would behoove us to give, even though we discussed it and the Rebbe explains it, but we have to refresh the principle. What is Ohr? So it's Ohr Makif, Ohr Pnimi. Just to give us a very simple and almost tangible illustration of what we mean by Ohr. Again, it has to be understood from the vantage point, from the perspective that Chassidus is talking about. We know Ohr, the Ohr HaShemesh, the light of the sun. We know the Ohr HaShemesh embraces the entire world and illuminates it. I'd like to ask ourselves the following question. That which illuminates the world, is that merely a reflection, an emanation, or a energy coming from the sun, or the way it is expressed in Torah and Chassidus, that it is the sun that illuminates the world. We spoke about it in the past. We spoke about it many times, but when we come to these very fine points, we have to refresh it, because this is very, very fine, distinct from our common thinking. In our common thinking, as much as we speak about it, there is an energy emanating, coming forth from the sun, and it journeys from the sun and hits the earth, and then deflected from the earth, and that is what illuminates the earth. This we call Ohr. In Torah, the word Ohr means something totally differently. And the very first mention of Ohr, we immediately see that the Torah speaks about something different. Because the very first mention of Ohr in the Torah is, God said, let there be light, and there was light. In other words, it's a creation of light, not of a luminary, not of a source of light. What does that mean? So to speak about the Ohr Shenur B'Imration, before that we want to speak the way it is in our world. The Chassidus, the Torah view of the way things are in our world. The Torah view, the way things are in our world is as follows. There's a sun. And the sun emanates light. But what really transformed the world from a dark world to a bright world is not that light that comes into the world. It is the presence of the sun itself that defines the world as a bright world. If you have electric light that illuminates this world, this room, we would not call it a bright room. We would call it a lit up room. Bright means that the brightness transforms it and makes it into a different kind of entity, not a dark that needs to be illuminated, but it's bright on a fundamental level. Light per se, an energy of light cannot transform an area to be called bright. It can light it up. It can make it visible. You can make see things. But that's it. That's a practical level. To transform it and say this is a bright world is a completely different thing. Let's take that on a higher level. It will be much easier. On a human level. We said many times that before light was introduced into the world, you would be able to actually find your way in the world by touch. Like in this room, if you come into the room, it's dark, you can feel your way around and get around the world and identify every object in the world. After you have identified every object in the world, you know clearly what the layout of the room does not become bright. You know everything. But it doesn't change the presence of the world to say, to this room, to say it's a bright room. Because in fact it's dark. You know what's in it. Take this a step further. Even if it is not dark, if it is lit up, it is lit up. The light that lights it up does the same thing as touch, except it's in a different method. The room essentially remains a dark room on its own, except that we are able to identify things in it because there is this light that makes it visible. You could see it because of this light, not because the room shows itself to you. This is a correct way to present it. A bright room means that it shows itself to you. Light in the room is only make it possible for you to see it, even as a touch. What are the circumstances that can transform and can redefine this light, this room, as bright rather than as visible, as dark that you can identify things? The way that this room can be transformed into what's called a bright room is if you bring an essence of light into the room. Not a light that simply deflects itself from the object, but a light that embraces and takes over possession of the room and claims it to itself. This is a bright room. Then you could say that the room shows itself to you because it has been now been usurped and claimed to the light element rather than to the dark element. Mentioned many times, the Pasuk says, the Rebbe created the luminaries. We say this very often. That Hashemesh, the Shemesh, the sun, lememsheles bayim. Everybody remember that phrase, I'm sure. What does lememsheles bayim mean? What does lememsheles bayim mean?
Rules by day.
Rules a day. Rules a day means that it claims it to itself. Like a melech, that a king is moishel.
And the Shlomo.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't call you. I did call you. If Shlomo, you don't have the line? Disconnected? You want to call in again? Well, I don't know. You disconnected, but the line is still on. Okay, so let me call back in just in case others. Let me call back in. Huh. Oh, he says the phone disconnected. Okay. All right. What is going on?
Conference ID.
Oh.
Welcome to thank you. You are now entering the conference room. To exit the conference room, press **. For help, press *9. Participant number 2.
Oh, the Shlomo is on. Okay, Baruch Hashem. Okay. So the real meaning of light that actually is moishel, rules, and takes over the world, the area, is not the light per se, which is only a practical, a functional light, but the luminary that captures and claims the entire area to itself. Like the sun, as the Pasuk says, Moishelas, it rules like a king rules. King does not rule by giving by direction, by his presence he rules. It's his. This is the principle of light. Now we understand the principle, the meaning of Makif. Makif is a representation, a reflection of the presence of a ruler, of an Etzer. This is the meaning of Ohr Makif. Ohr Makif means an oir that, yes, comes from a source, but the source is of such caliber that it's Makif, it takes over. It rules the entire area where it is present. This gives us a better understanding of the meaning of the word Makif. Even though it comes also from one source, but that source is of such profound presence that it completely embraces and takes over the entire area that in which it is present. Like in the Moshe of the sun. The sun does not bring light, the sun it takes over. The time that the sun is apparent in the world, it's called day, it's not called night, dark. There's no darkness, and it doesn't exist. Because there's the essence of light, the sun, and that does not bring light, it brings an essence of light. It transforms the world into into what's called day rather than night. That's why in the Torah, when light came into being, the Rebbe separated the day from the light from the darkness, and he gave each a name. The darkness is called light, and the brightness, the light is called day. What's the point of giving it a name? The naming element is saying that this is it's a separate thing, it's a different reality. It is not night that is illuminated. It's a different reality. Because now there is an essence of light. This essence of light takes over, becomes the ruler. It owns this entire time, this entire area. It has a different thing. It's interesting, if you look in the Chumash, it says everything that the Rebbe created, it says he gave it a name. What's the point of naming it? Is it teaching us a language, a means of reference? It's a name that is a proper name. Because they're separate, they're completely separate creatures, day and night. Each representing a divine truth, a fundamental truth, not as a difference between it visible or not visible. Coming back to the question, I said, what is Ohr? Ohr is that which brings the presence of the source of light. Ohr is that which connects to the essence, to the source of light. When you have the source of light, then it is not the object that you see, but the object shows itself to you. The object calls your attention to itself because it is in a different, it's in a bright reality. If this is clear enough, let's come back to the religion question: Ohr Makif and Ohr Pnimi. Ohr Makif means an encompassing light. Again, light represents the luminary. There is two aspects that come from the luminary. One is that this is owned by this luminary. Makif. Makif means encompassing. Then there is Ohr Pnimi. Ohr Pnimi means that this luminary does not only tell you about itself, I'm here, but it tells you more. It tells you what I'm about. It says, what I'm about, this is what's called Pnimi. What do you make of the fact? How do you relate to this truth? What is good and bad from this perspective? What is right and wrong? What is true and false? How do you utilize this reality that this luminary, that this Ohr reveals to you? This is called Pnimi. The way the Ohr is contained and owned by the luminary, it's a different level. But the function, the purpose of this whole thing, of the luminary revealing itself, is that it should give light to outside, to the created entity. There is the Pnimi, because the created entity takes the light in its own way. Did I lose connection again?
I don't know, I'm calling him now. This is 3 times a day, it's crazy.
Oh, Ben.
7, 2, 3, 2,
Okay,
9.
disconnected again, right?
Just stay on this line. Let's
Shlomo? Hello? Disconnected again?
just stay on this call.
Let me call back.
This will be the 3rd time.
I don't know why it's just... Okay, I'm calling you back.
If there's nobody else there, let's just call him.
What?
If there's no one else there, let's just call Shlomo directly.
Well, we don't know, unless I'm...
To connect, please enter your conference ID followed by...
Just a second.
Yeah, but it's the 3rd time.
Welcome
For
to
some
the-
reason your phone doesn't work in the
Thank you.
basement.
You are now entering the conference
Oh, the
room.
basement.
To exit the conference room,
Or
press
something, yeah,
star
or some
star.
issue.
For help, press star 9. Participant number 2.
Okay. Could be it's the basement problem. It does work. Okay. So this is what we undertake today. The Rebbe starts off by talking about Ohr Makif and Ohr Pnimi. Before that, we went stepped off and we said, okay, what is Ohr? Ohr is a very unique reality. And it exists only as a result of the luminary, the source, not as it emanates from the source, as it affects the surrounding area. Because that the luminary claims, owns, memshelis, claims this whole area, this is why it's all lit up, because it belongs to something that is bright. Therefore, it is lit up. A very simple way for us to translate it in our worldly terms. You own a home. No matter what the size, extent of this home is, every inch of this home is yours. You're present everywhere. And when somebody enters this home, he immediately treats it with deference and respect because it belongs to somebody. But this other person, the one who owns it, is not even visible. Nonetheless, he's present. This presence is what we call oil. So oil is the spiritual, the reality presence of the Etzem. The owner himself cannot be everywhere principally as himself. He can be he's only a human being. But his right to ownership is such that he can own an area that he never visited even. As we said many times, this right of ownership is granted to him by the creator of the world. The Rebbe gave the human being the right to own. An animal cannot own. As mentioned many times, the thought process in the world, when it says, I have $1 million and I bequeath it to my dog, it's never going to happen. The dog does not have the ability and the right, the divine right to own ownership in anything in the world. In other words, not only because it cannot have the means to acquire it. Even if you give it, he cannot own it. Because ownership is a divine right. The human being represents that divine right. This divine right, this is called Ohr Makif. And here, having mentioned the dog, gives us a clear handle on the thing. The dog also has food. And the dog also sees things and runs back and forth and so forth. But it does not relate to the makif, to the reality around him. To the dog makes no difference whether he's running in a wasteland or he is running in a populated area. He does not have the makif sense at all. The dog only knows of himself, does not know of the creator that makes him be, of the makif. The human being, this is the difference. The human being is aware that this whole world, when he is walking, when he is functioning and all that, is owned by a creator. And this creator gives him a sense of reality, of the entire reality. Wherever he walks, he's in reality. The dog is walking because there's nothing obstructing his walk. Essentially, it's walking in nothingness. A human being never walks in nothingness. He walks where he has the right to walk.